Hey everybody, Stu Smith here going live. Happy Monday. I hope you're doing well. Today, as the title says, is the first day of Hellweek, which means there are some dudes going through a long week that has just begun. It probably started last night, maybe before midnight. Sometimes they're after midnight. Doesn't really matter. It tends to start in the Sunday night, early Monday morning time. So you kind of miss out on that night's sleep. And it begins. So as you're going through this week, I want you to remember when you get comfortable in bed at night and you're about to go to sleep, there are people who are not going to bed. They're still moving. And they will continue to move for 120 plus hours straight. Oh, I might have an echo on. Let me see if I can turn that off.
Thank you for fixing that for me.
Tell me if this is better. Is that better? Hopefully that means my echo was off. I think that does. How's that? Is that better? Somebody's playing with my microphone. Better? Good. Sorry about the echo. That was just silly. But it sounded cool though, I bet, huh? Live from New York. But anyway, as you are going to bed tonight, you will hope you remember them. And by the end of Friday morning, they will be done with their 120 hours worth of activity, and they will be in the they'll be in the next phase of SEAL training, where they really start learning really cool things, like they're going to go into diving, they're going to go into mission planning. They're going to do land navigation and shooting and explosives. So they get some of the basics of their profession, and then they move on to SQT, which is SEAL qualification training, which is more of the same, just another level. They'll also jump out of planes and they'll scuba dive again and do some more challenging tactical training. Physically, after Hell Week, it is still hard, but it's not as hard, because one thing that is life-changing at SEAL training is there will be a moment when you never touch the log and you never touch those darn boats again. And usually up until Hell Week, that is all you've been doing. Week 1, week 2, week 3, and then week 4 is Hell Week. And those first 3 weeks, that's where most of the people start quitting or getting injured, and they don't make it through the training. And then once they get to Hell Week, they lose another 50% of the remaining group, to where you might have, for instance, typical classes are usually 150, 200 people at the start. And then by the time you get to Hell Week, you're probably in the 50, 60 range. And then by the end of Hell Week, you're probably in the 30s or 20s. There have been some classes that have gone down to the single digits. But that's atypical. If you look historically through the decades of SEAL training, that is not sustainable for the community. You definitely need some people to graduate. But as you can see, it's not very easy. So before we go into questions, let's just start off here with Mikkel. He is leaving for boot camp tomorrow. So basic training there in his country, which I think is Norway. Is that correct? Or Denmark? I can't remember. I'm terribly sorry. I'm forgetting which country you're from. But Great job, man. It's great having you on here. Thanks for your comments. One thing I am doing is I'm taking these live Monday posts, videos that I'm doing. I'm making them audio, so you can find them on the Tactical Fitness Report podcast now, which you can find at Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, wherever podcasts are presented. You can check it out. I got multiple platforms where these podcasts are, so you can Google Tactical Fitness Report and you can find these audio ones on there. And I'll probably backtrack a couple for the next couple of weeks and try to get all my Mondays on there. I would do Tuesdays, but Tuesdays are kind of me sharing a video of swimming, and I just thought that would be a little bit frustrating for someone listening, that I'm sharing a video and they're only able to hear it. So let's see. Everybody wishes you good luck there, Mikkel. So you got a question. How do you recommend I progress with running? I've started light jogging on grass with no pain since I had bad shin splints. You know what? Now that you are at basic training starting tomorrow, it's really kind of out of your hands. And to be honest with you, I don't think you're going to have time to add any extra running to your day unless I'm misunderstanding how you are able to do your training there in Denmark. But eventually, you will be able to run with no pain. Hopefully that's what occurs. Hopefully they actually do progress you pretty logically in basic training there. But my advice is at the end of every day, just try to lick your wounds, try to massage your shins, try to stretch your ankles, doing that stretch I like to do where I sit on my shins with my toes pointed. That really is a good way to stretch your ankles and shin muscles, and then you can lean back a little bit and you can definitely feel the stretch. I've posted it a couple times on my Instagram, and you guys can check that out. Let's see. Did you ever miss doing logs and boats PT after graduation? No, never missed that a bit. Did not like it. I did it and I didn't feel crushed by it. So I can't say I hated it to a point. And I've only done logs a few times and been under a boat a few times since then. I was part of a group that, had to carry some stuff a while back, and we did a competition where we had to carry a boat like a couple 100 yards, but it was nothing like carrying a boat on your head for a whole day or now for a whole week. You definitely get tired of those boats at the end of Hellweek, but you don't even notice it anymore. To be honest with you, first 3 weeks you get so used to having a boat and a log and being wet and sandy all the time that it's really no shock to you anymore. There won't be a moment that you're really dry, and if you are, you'll probably get wet again pretty quickly. So you just get used to being uncomfortable. In fact, one of my Hellweek stories was it's probably like day 3. Pretty much everybody quits that first night, and probably the first 24 hours. After 24 hours, most people are not really into quitting. They're kind of invested in it. They've already stayed up a couple of nights, and they're just, what else can they do to me? Make me do push-ups, get wet and sandy. They kind of get that mentality of, still pushing, but you still have to maintain a standard. You can't just goof off and be a zombie and just muddle through Hellweek. It's still physically demanding. But what we did, we won a race, and it's called the Round the World race, where you paddle around Coronado. And I can't really remember what day it was. It might have been day 3. All I know is I was hallucinating like crazy, just seeing all kinds of weird stuff. Like we all were, bricks in the walls, and some guy was screaming sharks, and brick walls in the middle of the bay. I would look at these giant cranes, in the harbor of San Diego, and I thought they were like giant horses or stuff. I mean, it was just really weird. You're tripping pretty much the whole time. But anyway, we won this race pretty handedly, like 2.5 hours faster than the last boat. So we got to kind of hang out until that last boat came in, and then they hammered the last boat for losing. So we got another 30 minutes, but we got to dig a hole and put the boat on top of the hole, and we all crawled in under. Wasn't a whole lot of room in there, but it was just everybody was spooning to stay warm. And that was the most comfortable I think I had ever been in my life. And I'm still wet. I'm still sandy. I'm laying under a boat with 6 other dudes, and we're just spooning to stay warm. And it was mentally refreshing. It was physically refreshing. And I just remember saying, man, I have really resorted to like a caveman mentality of finding comfort when it's really uncomfortable. And I think those are the kind of moments that you have to go through and realize that, you got this, you can do this. You have found, that magic, fuel when the tank is empty, that magic getting comfortable when you're uncomfortable. And those are really only found when you're in those moments of just being pushed. And that's what Hellweek is. It really is just a big test of that. But I never missed logs and boats. I also never missed being under a log and boat, even spooning with dudes. It's not something you miss. That is for sure. But I'm glad that I had the experience and that I was able to find comfort in that moment. Let's see. So what age timeline would you say is an athlete's prime for special ops? And for older guys who knew who crushed buds, SFAS, what were their commonalities in general? Yeah, that's a really good question, because the ages, it ranges. I've seen guys as young as 17 make it through buds, and I've seen guys as old as 38 make it through buds. And when I went to an SF graduation, I saw a guy who was 43 that made it through SF graduation. And as guy as young as 18 make it through SF graduation. So it's not a tight window. So I tell people all the time, don't think you have to go at 18 years old just because you can. In fact, those teens that make it through are like unicorns. I mean, they are rare animals. They just it doesn't happen enough for me to say, oh yeah, 18, you're fine. In fact, it's a mass exodus of teenagers in your first 3 weeks. Remember me talking about everybody who's quitting in those first 3 weeks? It's usually teenagers. In fact, there's a lot of teenagers that even quit before it even starts, just because they show up at prep and they realize, holy crap, these are grown men out here. I'm just an 18-year-old kid, haven't even finished puberty yet, and I need some time to grow. And the doubt sets in and you're done. But I will say there's a few 18-year-olds that are grown-ass men that can make it through. But they're, like I said, they are unicorns. They had an early growth spurt, trained hard, and were able to get through that. So I don't really see an ideal age. There's a huge range. But I would say if I was just looking at statistics, 22 to 25 is a really good age to go through spec ops training. It just is. You're a different person at 22 than you are at 18. I promise you. If you don't believe me, ask an older guy, because they will tell you that is the truth. It's almost like your frontal lobe hasn't even developed yet until you're probably mid 20s. So there's that. As far as a timeline, it really depends on your athletic history. For me, I was a strength athlete, and it took me a good 2 years just to be a better endurance and muscle stamina candidate to go into spec ops training. So that, for me, I thought was normal. However, I've seen guys who came in multi-sport athletes that did a little bit differently, because I was football, powerlifting, and track my junior, senior years. I just threw shot put. So, I wrestled and played baseball too, but, those were earlier in high school. But so the guys who came in with maybe some more endurance background, say they wrestled all 4 years or maybe a couple of years in college, they played D1 lacrosse. Those guys tended to not need a lot of time and preparation. In fact, probably the quickest time I've ever seen is a guy who I taught swimming, and 3 months later, he was heading to Buds. Pretty much his only weakness was swimming. He was fast. He had PT, calisthenics. He was strong, had an athletic history that was more wrestling and lacrosse, just didn't know how to swim. I taught him how to swim well, and he just went, in like 3 weeks or 3 months, he was at boot camp. Literally just had to focus on swimming. So if you think about it, if you're doing some good athletics, you are already preparing in some way for special ops. I didn't know I was preparing for special ops when I was in high school. Didn't know anything about it. I want to be a pilot. But those strength things that I did throughout those years enabled me to not have to focus on strength when I was preparing for spec ops. I literally focused on calisthenics and cardio. That is my journey. However, the endurance guy would probably need to focus on strength. The swimmer doesn't need to swim. He needs to focus on being a better runner and building some durability under gravity, because he spent his whole athletic career, if he only did swimming, in zero gravity. So they are susceptible to a lot of injury. So everybody has a different timeline. And I think age is one of those things that it kind of depends on your maturity level. Even the older guys, they were just wiry, strong, mentally tough dudes. And they just got through. And the one thing that I would say was the biggest commonality is that everybody understood how to recover from day-to-day grind. That's the key, is what are you going to do to recover when you have limited time to recover and get back busy the next day? That means eating right, hydrating, electrolytes. Those are the big 3 right there, and sleeping, big 4. And then all the other little massage tools that you can use to, work out any, tight joints and tight muscles. Being able to master recovery is the major commonality to all of them, in spec ops performance. 100%. Great question, Joe. Appreciate that one. Let's see. Mikhail says, first 2 weeks are long days. After those first weeks, we'll be waking up at 5 a.m. and we're off at 5 p.m. I'll be doing your programs in the evenings and 4 a.m. if the schedule requires. Well, I will say this. Don't do too much. If you're learning, put it this way, if you're in a classroom all day and you're learning stuff that is non-physical, Sure, add a workout afterwards. But if you're crushing it and you've been rucking all day and you've been running all day, last thing you need to do is anything on your feet. I mean, if you go do something, maybe get on a bike and loosen up for the next day. If all you've done is cardio and you want to do some lifting, that's okay, but don't lift too much, because every time you lift, you're going to need to recover from that. And you may not have enough time to actually recover, depending on what you're going to do that next day. So be smart about adding in a program into your basic training program, because depending on what you're doing there, that will drive what you should do the day before, or should not do, is probably the better answer. So you can do too much and wind up getting injured. Most of those injuries come from overtraining at those type of schools, especially if it's a 12-hour day already, you're going to be tired. So Bro Chacha says, I'd say that Hellweek is at least 60% mental strength. What would you say it is? How can a candidate increase their ability to handle stress in Hellweek, or is it general all the buds? You know what? I've tried to answer this question. In fact, I put a link into the description of this article, and it's called "The Moment of Truth," when it is just you and your will. And it really comes down to how bad do you want it? Because here's the deal. When it's time to do the test, and we'll call Hellweek the test, but this can apply to any hard physical event. When it's time to go do the test, there's no more time to get stronger. There's no more time to get faster. There's no more time to work on your technique and get better and more efficient at something. The only thing you can do is get tougher. So that is something that I think, if you just keep that in the back of your head, like, all I can do right now is get tougher, right? And that's something you can control, right? I can control me bringing my A game and feeling like this is game on. I got to bring it to this next event. And so you can mentally will yourself through these events one at a time and get through it. I think the biggest thing about Hellweek is a lot of people lose sight of the light at the end of the tunnel, because 120 hours away to the end of the tunnel, you don't see any light on day one. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. It's a dark, ominous, cold, wet, sandy tunnel. That gets a lot of people. Now, what I say is you break that week up into consumable chunks, meaning you do one event at a time. What I did, and what I recommend a lot of people to do, is to get to the next meal, because every 5 or 6 hours you're going to eat 4 times a day, every 6 hours, every 5 hours, 6 hours. And you usually eat for 45 minutes to an hour. You have time to eat something. And that is the time to catch your breath, eat as much as you can, drink as much as you can. A lot of high calorie foods. I mean, you should just be eating thousands of calories in those meals. Peanuts and peanut butters, and even the fat on, chicken skin, and fat on steaks if they have steak, or, anything, just extra calories, because you're going to need it to stay warm. You're going to need it to perform for the next 6 hours. And if you can do that, you now have fuel to heat up that boiler in your body to produce heat, and you now have energy for the next 5-6 hours. So that is key. That is key. So yes, it's some mental strength, but it's also some fueling strategies, I think, more than anything. But you have to keep your wits about you and not be all beat up and unable to eat either, where I've seen a lot of people do. Like, they just can't eat. They're just so nervous that they just can't eat. They're going to throw up as soon as they get out. you got to eat and you got to hydrate and you got to have electrolytes. Otherwise, it is going to be miserable out there. So check out that article I linked in the description. It really comes down to how bad you want it. And you're gonna come to that moment of truth when you're cold and wet and tired and hungry and the day's just not ending and you see no ending in sight, and you have to have an answer for how you're going to move forward, right? Yes, you can stop and go get warm and take a shower. You can do that, but you can also say, this is what I have to do to get to where I want to be, and you just endure it. So yes, it is. It's probably more than 60% mental, because there are moments when it is 100% mental, and there are moments when it is 100% physical, and you just have to put out. And there are moments when you just have to get tougher and put out. So I know I kind of went all over the place on that answer, but there's really no one answer to that one. It's a good question, though. Let's see, what else we got? Following a lift cycle right now. Trying to put on mass. Good. Do you think 20 sets per workout is okay? I follow an upper lower body split. Perform most of my sets to failure. It's probably, if you're going to do that many sets, I would suggest maybe instead of going sets to failure, go sets to fatigue, which means 1 or 2 away from failure. And you may feel better with that process. Just failing every time isn't a necessity for putting on mass. What's the biggest necessity for putting on mass? Eating. You have to eat big if you want to be big. And then you have to lift. But I don't really count the number of sets I do per se in a workout. Definitely, I wouldn't do that on the same exercise. So if I'm doing multiple exercises, let's say I got 6 different exercises and I'm doing 3 or 4 sets of each, sure, 20 sets is okay, but I don't really count them that way. I just make sure I work all the muscle groups of that upper body, lower body split, and then top it off with a little bit of cool down cardio. I will say this, there are some studies out there. A lot of times people are liking to do ice baths, and Jeff and I just did a podcast on it. You can check it out on the YouTube channel or on where you get podcasts. I think it's 231 about ice baths. And if you're trying to put on mass, the last thing you need is to jump in an ice bath after a workout. It's just not helpful for putting on mass. Now, if you're trying to lose weight, it could be helpful. If you're trying to not put on mass, it definitely is helpful because it will prevent you from putting on mass. So remember that. No ice baths if you're trying to put on mass. Is it common for people to get dropped at SQT? It is not common, but it happens. Usually it is because they did something stupid or they are a safety violation just waiting to happen, and they perform some safety or perform some events that were unsafe. Like, put it this way, if you get we used to call them accidental discharges, accidental, like let's say you got your finger on the trigger and it goes off and you didn't mean it to go off. That's not good. You would probably get dropped for that. If not rolled, at least, I would think you'd be dropped for that. But anyway, safety is an issue. Stupidity is an issue. Sometimes it's a performance thing, right? You just haven't kept up with your physical performance. They'll give you a fitness test. You don't pass it, you're out. That sucks. But very rarely are people failing fitness tests post-buds. But I've seen it happen. Let's see, if someone isn't ready for spring mileage, do you have them do more lifting or more non-impact cardio? More non-impact cardio. But it really depends on their athletic history. Most people who aren't ready for spring mileage are coming from a strength background that's not used to running that kind of mileage, or they're swimmers that aren't used to running that kind of mileage. So depending on that, if you're a lifter and trying to lose weight, I would have you doing more non-impact cardio. If you're a swimmer and just need to get used to gravity and get a little stronger, I would have you in the weight room along with some non-impact cardio, because it is a combination of strength and durability for those guys. So once again, there's no one answer for any of this. That's why I do a lot of articles. That's why I do a lot of live Q&As like this, because everybody's going to be a little different. These are programs. These are programs that specifically address the events of your training to get to and through the training. They may not be personally perfect for you, and you have to make those changes, whether that is an adding or reduction of mileage, maybe throwing in some weights, but you can make those adjustments depending on what you're trying to do. What I recommend people to do is first work on all the elements of fitness, so they are strong, they got power, they got speed, they got agility, they have muscle stamina, they have endurance, run, ruck, swim, they have mobility, flexibility, they have grip. Those are all the elements of fitness that a tactical athlete needs. So that's what these programs here are for. Any of the seasonal tactical fitness periodization models really focus on all those elements of fitness, spread throughout a 4-cycle year. Then you have the events of fitness, the specific events of your training, whether that is running, rucking, swimming, calisthenics tests, bigger events, longer runs, longer swims with fins. Those are events that you also need to prepare for. So that's the phase 1 and phase 2 of this world, where you focus on phase 1 to get to the training, fitness test stuff. Focus on phase 2 of training, which is getting through the training, your future training, which are more specifically dialed into the actual selection or boot camp or basic training itself, where you'll be rucking more, you'll be running longer, you'll be grinding out workouts under logs and boats, and stressing your overall durability. So there's it really depends on your process, whether you're going Air Force, going Army. All these are a little bit different. Going Marine Corps, going Navy. In fact, I'm going to give this one away today. The key to mental toughness. Since this is Hellweek, and I actually have a Hellweek simulation in this program, and it's a fun one. It's let me see how many days are in here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 days in this one, but there are 15 workouts to be done in 6 days. So yes, there's basically 3 a days on this one, and it is a grind. It is one of those weeks that you definitely want to taper afterwards, because it's a butt kicker. But a couple of Hell Weeks ago, we wound up doing this, and it was fun as a group, because we'd get our normal workout done from 6 to 8, and then we'd go eat breakfast, and then we get a second workout done in the morning, and then we'd come back in the afternoon and get a third workout done in the afternoon. And it was a fun little grind that was kind of one of those. Our buddies were going through Hell Week, so we were kind of going through Hell Week with them. It was fun. So that's phase 4. Phase 4, Navy SEAL, the key to mental toughness, prepare for Hell Week, and more. But there's some pretty good tips in here on mental toughness. But I have a lot of articles on mental toughness too. In fact, I have a mental fact. Let me put this in here, because I have this one link or one article, mental toughness, the one-stop landing page for mental toughness, which is literally, let's see, looks like we got at least 15 articles and about 7 or 8 podcasts on the topic of mental toughness. So that seems to be a common thread today about mental toughness. So I'm going to give away this. And so what I want you to do, you can't do it now. Just listen up. When you guys see this come up in the next 10 minutes, okay, you see this book giveaway. I'm going to flash it up here like this while I'm talking. And when you see that, and I want you to say the words, send it to me. Okay, send it to me is what you have to type in the comment section. And if you're first, I will send it to you. And then you can just email me your address and I will get it to you in the mail today. So let's see. What's another question for you? From you. How did you handle the sleep deprivation during buds with a typical 8 hours of sleep for your recovery? How did your recovery, your mind and body of stress? Well, you do get weekends off. And in fairness, that's a good thing. You know, having a day, Saturday and Sunday to kind of sleep in, lick your wounds, massage. We didn't have foam rollers back then. I wish I would have. Probably wouldn't have been rolled third phase for a knee injury had I had a foam roller. Might have been able to work my way through that one. That's completely guessing. But yeah, you eat. You know, we did have opportunities to just keep on eating, and we would eat, you know, regular breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then we would eat again, probably like 8:30, 9 o'clock. Just we'd go get a burrito or something, and then we just go to bed. And you know, by 9:30, we're asleep, and you know, ready to wake up probably about 4:30 in the morning, get ready for the next day. That was probably most days. It's, you know, the first 4 weeks are the most stressful. That is when your days are really long. You might have a 20-hour day and you might only get 3 hours of sleep a couple of nights. But that's, if you think about it, everything that you're doing in those first 3 weeks is preparing you for Hellweek. You're going to be introduced to logs and boats and getting wet and sandy and running all day with soft sand and, you know, doing all kinds of stuff as a team. But you'll also be starting to learn a little bit about handling lack of sleep. And so if you can just get through those first 4 weeks, the rest of buds, 6 months, is not horrible. It really isn't. It kind of turns into a triathlon of pull up or run, swim, ruck, and calisthenics. You know, you're not under a boat and log carrying a whole lot of weight. Now you will. We're twin 80s in second phase and you're well rucks in third phase. Not that big a deal, right? But yeah, licking your wounds on the weekends, sleeping when you can. That really matters. Morning, Stu, I've been working on pull-ups for about a month now and I'm stuck at 15. What's the fastest way to get to 20? My advice is don't do daily pull-ups at this point. Don't do, definitely don't do daily pull-ups and don't do a whole lot of like small sets, right? Don't just do like sets of 5 to get to 200, right? Do big sets of pull-ups. So what I would suggest is to once a week, you know, do a pyramid one day. In fact, I'm going to do this. I got 3 workouts I want you to do in your week. And I call this article three workouts to crush a PT test. Oh, I see this link didn't go through. So this is that mental toughness one I was telling you about. This first one. And then this one is the link about the 3 favorite PT tests. So the first one is like a PT pyramid. Just work your way up till you fail, turn around, come back down. And then the second one is more like a superset of sub-max rep workouts. So say 10 sets of, let's say 10 sets of 10. You're going for 100, right? See if you can do that along with push-ups and sit-ups and other exercises as well. And then the third workout of the week is this is the money maker right here. So what I want you to try to do is try to get 100 pull-ups along with other exercises too. You know, as kind of like a rest, push-ups, dips, abs, squats, lunges, whatever you feel like putting in there. But try to go 100 pull-ups in as few sets as possible. And my goal for you is be able to try to do that 6 or 7 sets. You know, at 15 right now, it might take you more than that. That's okay, as long as it's under 10. And then eventually you're going to see things start moving in the right direction to where you're starting to get 17 in those big sets and 18 in those big sets. And I've seen people go from 15 to 25 after being stuck at 15 for months, and they get 25 in about 5 to 6 weeks of what I just sent you. Right? That's why I like that max rep set workout so much, because it is kind of like the plateau push off that you need when you're stuck up there. You might have done multiple ways to get to 15, might have done some daily pull-ups for a while. That's okay with low volume, but the 15 to 25 I have found to be a big challenge for people. And you don't want to rely on daily pull-ups because you just don't have enough time to recover, especially when you're doing high volume stuff. You got to treat high volume repetitions of pull-ups the same way you would do a weightlifting workout. So the maximum I'm going to have you do pull-ups is 3 days a week. That's a really good one. And I want you to try it. In fact, if you just add that one workout in on a Saturday, after a day or two off of upper body. So let's say your last upper body was Thursday and you get Friday off, or maybe even Wednesday, you get Thursday, Friday, and then you hit that 100 rep pull up day on Saturday. See how that treats you in a month, and don't change anything else. Just do your normal workout. As long as you're not doing daily pull-ups, you're doing pull-ups Monday, Wednesday, or Thursday and Saturday. Check that out. That works. I'm telling you. Someone from another country joins your custom programs. How do you go about customizing programs without knowledge about the pipeline? I learn about the pipeline. There's a whole lot of stuff I have learned about other people's process because I had to. And a lot of that stuff is online. It's pretty easy to find. And I will say this, I usually don't work with a lot of other country like spec ops guys. I've had a few in the past, like I got a couple in Australia and a couple in UK, but those are pretty common. You know, SBS, SAS. You know what you need to train for in that, and a lot of that has to do with running, rucking, a lot of rucking, and it's fast. Those Brits, man, they ruck fast. And of course, SBS, they add the swimming component to it. So it really depends. I have to do some learning on those customized programs. Otherwise, it doesn't work. But that's where a lot of my personal research goes into, helping people, prepare for whatever. Every now and then I get a test and a program that I have never helped anybody on, even here in America. Like Marshall's program that has a, special ops team, kind of like a Marshall SWAT team. I've never heard anything about it. So yeah, just causes me a little more work. That's all. Just saw your stress mitigation article. Thanks. Yeah, you're welcome. I forgot what you said about rucking versus running mileage. Do you consider rucking mileage as part of your total running mileage? I do personally. As if you change long run to long ruck. Yes, I would, because it's roughly the same amount of, it's a little greater impact forces on you when you're rucking, but it's a little less because you're not running. So mileage is mileage to me. If you're walking, running, rucking, it's kind of the same thing, though walking isn't that bad. Currently on week 7 of the 12 Weeks to Buds program. Let me see. Do I have a copy of that? I thought I had a copy of that. 12 Weeks to Buds program. So when people say, what's 12 Weeks to Buds program? It's this one. And you can see Complete Guide Navy SEAL Fitness featuring the 12 Weeks to Buds workout. So that you can find on Amazon. I don't sell it on my website anymore. So this question, I started gaining weight and dropping the cow numbers. Any advice to pick the numbers up? Well, if you're gaining weight, you're just eating too much. So if the weight gain is the cause of your reduction in cow numbers, you need to worry about what you're eating, and your cow numbers will probably go back up. Or you just keep grinding, and eventually your cow numbers will match for this new body weight that you're now battling. So, yeah, that's what I'd do. Another dumb question, but I don't think you asked a dumb question. I thought you asked a good question earlier. How much difference does having prior tactical experience make during the selection, whether it's Marines, Army, Infantry, or SWAT? How much of an edge can it provide? It can provide an edge. It can provide some skill set that, it's easier to learn some things that you've already learned before. Sometimes you may have to learn a little bit differently depending on the change that you're making. But yes, absolutely. I think it's better, especially when you're in a class environment of other guys going through it. You may be very helpful to guys that are struggling with a particular skill or even anxious about a particular skill. You might be able to calm them down and help them out with that. So there's multiple ways where it can be helpful. And you definitely just want to be a good guy that's a good team player in those units, because your reputation starts then, for the rest of your career. So yeah, you can use that skill or whatever history that you have to help others as well as help yourself. What do I think a knees over toes guy training exercises when preparing for buds are similar? Yeah, he's awesome. I think he's a very smart guy. I think he has, done some really good for knee stabilization, hips too, ankles. So I would say a lot of people have problems with hips, knees, and ankles, and his programming is really good for helping you post surgery, especially because we've had a couple of guys that had some, typical knee surgery that, guys get, and they're going to buds, and they supplemented some of the workouts we were doing with some knees over toes guys exercises. And I think they came out more durable because of it. Yes, Jeff is the man. He's a good guy. Good buddy. If I come from a football and wrestling background and can bench almost 2 times my body weight, that's good. And squat 2.5, would you recommend just doing cows and swim? Yes, that is strong enough. I was in that same position. I was 2 times my body weight on squat, deadlift, and bench. I didn't touch a weight for 2 years and just focused on running, swimming, and calisthenics. I grabbed a weight every now and then, but I was not on any lifting cycle in those 2 years. I was on a calisthenics and cardio cycle, almost like a triathlete would train versus someone who's, the last thing you need to do is be in a weight room. You're going to be plenty strong enough. Let's see what else we got here. Other questions. Glenn looks like he's the first one. All right, we got the book giveaway. So we already have a winner. Oh, wait, hang on. Let me see who it is. See where I was. Nope. Sean Steiner nailed it. Yes, I just sent this thing and nope. That is not correct. It is 9:50 and you sent it way too early. So what the hell? I sent it. Okay, Sean, you got it. Okay, man, I'm seeing all kinds of weird stuff popping up. So yeah, I sent this thing at 9:49, and Sean was the first one doing it. You guys that sent it at 9:43 and 9:38 were way too early, and I didn't post it. So looks like Sean is the winner. 9:49. We'll give it to you. I thought Glenn was first, but Sean came in just above that. You guys hit it. You guys must have hit the send button, had it ready to go right at the same time, because everybody's hitting it at 9:49. So good job on that. Damn. So I'll send this book to you. So email me, stu@stewsmith.com, Sean, and I will email your address. I'll mail this book to you, and I'll sign it too. Dang, good job, guys. Let's see who else has a question. Just finished. Okay, wow, we're way up here, man. You guys rallied on that one. I missed a few questions here. Holy crap. Okay, I got to go all the way up here to find a question. Okay, just answered that one. Is there a program you would recommend to target a better 1.5 and 4 mile timed runs? Well, none of my programs are just focused on running. Any Navy SEAL one will have both 1.5 and 4 mile timed run training in it. I mean, you got to crush 1.5 miles to get to the training. You have to crush a 4 mile timed run to get through the training. However, I did write this article, and it's a running plan to get you to and through training. And if you read this, you will see a really good running plan that you can supplement or replace any program that you're on with these run workouts. And it's 20 miles a week, but it's focusing on 2 different paces. One is your 1.5 mile pace of a 6-minute mile, and the other one is a 7-minute mile pace of a 4 mile timed run. Yeah. 1.5 miles, 6-minute mile, and a 7-minute mile to do that. So it is 2 different paces. So check out the link I just shared. But any of these workout programs, especially like this one right here, this seasonal tactical fitness spring and summer, this is the spring one, really focuses on that running progression of 6-minute mile and 7-minute mile. Right now we're in the winter cycle where we're just focusing on lifting, and we're only running about 15-20 miles a week. Both are focused on fast running, but it's not necessarily focused on crushing 1.5 miles and 4 mile timed runs. We're basically just running to maintain some speed with those, but we're trying to get bigger. So it depends on which program you're talking about. All of these programs, especially the Spec Ops level programs, are focused on 1.5 miles, 2 miles if you're Army, 3 miles if you're Marine Corps. But then also they advance into 4 and 5 mile runs as well. Army has a 5 mile run for Rangers. So it really kind of depends on where you are, on what you're grabbing. But these are specifically addressing 1.5 miles and 4 mile timed runs. All right. Carson. Oh, I missed Flavio here. I have a calisthenics background, practice for 3 years. Do you think it's a good idea to focus on lifting for a year? I'm pretty weak strength wise. You know what? I would suggest, not just lifting, but maybe using calisthenics to warm up, then lift for the meat of your workout, and then some form of cardio cool down. That way you can help yourself maintain some of that muscle stamina and endurance while you build strength. And that is basically what this is right here. This is a winter lift cycle. Fall is even another cycle of that's a little bit more of a mix of calisthenics and weights. So there's no reason to stop doing calisthenics. I love calisthenics as a warm up prior to lifting. Like if I'm doing a bench, if I'm doing squats with weight, I am going to probably do some push ups, probably do some air squats to warm up. It's just something I prefer to do. And that's what a lot of those workouts are for. Let's see. Stu, all the things considered, if you have knowledge and experience that you currently possess when you were preparing for buds, what would you have done differently? Would it stay the same? Personally, I probably would have stayed the same. I think everybody has a weakness when they show up at buds. And it's one of those weaknesses that you still pass events, but you got to bring your A game to that weakness in order to be competitive. So I was strong enough. Calisthenics were solid. Never had a problem on the grinder, PT, swimming, or O course, anything like that. My only problem I really had at buds was running. And that was just something that, and I never failed a run. And my fastest 4-mile timed run was a 26:30, but I was usually at that 27, 28 mile or minute 4-mile timed run when I would do it. And a couple of, hard leg days, I might have hit a 30 a couple of times, but those were my personal gut checks. So I had to bring it on those events. On the other events, I didn't have to really mentally prepare for a grinder PT. I didn't have to mentally prepare for a 2-mile swim. I knew I could pass it even if I was feeling horrible, right? But if I was going to do well on a run, everything had to be in alignment. Both my fueling, my mental ready to go, and just had to bring it. Like I said, that is bringing my A game when I talk about bringing your A game. So would I have tried to run a little bit differently? Probably. I would say I probably didn't really know how to run well until after buds, just pure breathing rhythms and things like that, and stride mechanics. Probably could have learned to run a little more efficiently before buds. But I think I ran enough. It was just, I could have been more efficient at it. And I probably, in hindsight too, I probably could have been a little better at treading, working my hips, knees. I learned the egg beater. I didn't know how to do the egg beater until I was 3 or 4 years in the teams. So, I had to get through buds with scissor kicks, and that was not easy. So I would say those was probably my 2 biggest things. Everybody has a weakness. You just got to bring your A game to that event. I just finished week 5, day 1. A PST program cannot get more than 8 strokes per breath in the hypoxic swims. Any tips? Try holding your breath, versus trying to exhale the whole time when you're freestyling. So usually when I'm on 8 or 10, I will hold my breath for 6 and then exhale the final 4 for 10. Or if I'm trying to get 8, I'll hold my breath for the first 4 and start exhaling, 5, 6, 7, 8 arm pulls. That will probably help you. And a lot of people start exhaling as soon as they start those freestyle swims. My suggestion would be to hold your breath just few strokes. See what that does. Thank you. Your work and Seal Grinder PTs helped me stay injury free in my job and nursing home. Oh, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I like guys over at Seal Grinder. They're good dudes. Danish Jaeger pipeline is similar to SAS. From what I've heard from the SF guys I know, I would like to hop on your custom programs later in the year. Was just wondering. Yeah, I got you. I would have to do some research for you, and you would have to do some research and tell me. Sorry, let me get rid of this book giveaway thing. I've heard a lot about clinics that offer laser eye surgery often require candidates being 25 years old. Do you think a candidate waiting to go SOF changes their minds? What about your guys? I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell you. I don't really handle, any information about laser eye surgery. All I know is here, LASIK and PRK are waiverable for SEAL, so you can get those. But here, you don't need to be 25 to do it. I mean, I've seen guys 20 years old doing it, but what really qualifies is their vision, not necessarily their age. I don't know, man. I'm not sure how to change a surgeon's mind. It's not my cup of tea. I won't get a book soon, then I will. If I won't get a book soon, then I will PR. I'm not sure what that means there, Alex. Order one. Yeah, you can order one if you want. What's the best cows and cardio program? I have the spring and summer tactical fitness book. Yeah, it's a good one. But how about the actual book called Cows and Cardio? This is a good one, but it also has a beginner, intermediate, advanced. So it's a little bit more general in its approach. I will say that the summer fitness program of this one, like this is spring, the seasonal tactical fitness periodization summer is all hardcore calisthenics and cardio. Now, if you have a spring and summer tactical fitness program, that's a great one too. I love that one. That was one we did a couple of years ago. These are just a little bit different, not, but very similar. For knowledge in the tactical field pertaining to strength and conditioning, which one do you think has more value, TSAC or CSS? A lot of people get both. I'm a CSCS, and I have the book for the TSAC. I've read it, and I'll be honest with you, it's very similar to the CSCS. There's some minor differences in it, mostly just because of the demands of primarily the demands of the profession of the tactical athlete. So one of the reasons why I didn't go get the TSAC, just because it's another certification that I have to maintain, but I also don't deal with a lot of active duty operators. I do some, not a lot. That's not a bulk of who I work with. I work with folks who are on the other end of that spectrum, training to get to and through the selection. Then they become what I would call phase 3 of tactical fitness, focused more on maintenance of all the elements of fitness. They're not trying to go through a selection unless they are trying to go through like a DevGuru selection or a Delta selection. Then they become phase 2 candidates again. But when you're a phase 3 operator, you're primarily focused on maintaining all your elements of fitness so you can do the job. Then you're going to be under significant amount of stress because of that job. And so you need to learn some stress mitigation techniques and proper recovery tools. Because here's the cool thing about recovery is that if you're a young kid, if you master recovery, you will have optimal performance. Even when you're older, master recovery, you have optimal performance. But if you learn to master recovery, you will also have longevity. So once again, the mastery of recovery is critical for both the candidate as well as the operator, but it's just a little bit different for the operator. The intensity of the preparation is so much different. You're more in a maintenance phase versus a selection, optimal performance, off the chart, mental toughness, gut check phase. If you carry that phase 2 level of training into your phase 3 operator training, you're probably going to wind up injured, especially as you get into your 30s. You still train hard, but it's just different. So that's where the TSAC focuses on. They tend to focus more on the actual operator versus the pre-candidate that I tend to focus on, if that makes sense. A few more questions, and then I got to go. You guys are asking some great questions. Do you have any tips on how to cheat fitness tests That's a horrible question. Are different to normal techniques. I've heard of switching grips on push-ups, leaning a little forward in the runs. Yeah, I hate the word cheat personally. But yeah, there's strategies to testing. Absolutely. In fact, what you need to do is check out the PST clinic articles, and you'll see a whole bunch of tips and tricks, if you want to call them that. I hate that term as well, but they're very good strategies to perform at your best without having to get stronger. You actually just got smarter because you learned to pace yourself on sit-ups, or you learned to pace yourself on a run versus starting off like a sprint. Same for the swim. You learned where to place your hands for when you do push-ups and pull-ups. That's optimal for you. All right, let's see how many questions we got here. We got a whole lot of questions. All right, so here's the deal. I'm not going to get to all these questions because we've already been going over an hour. So if you would, just cut and paste your question and just email it to me, stu@stewsmith.com, and I will answer it one-on-one. But before I do, I'm going to answer this one. What's the best way to ask for SEALs to a recruiter? What are the answers to avoid? First of all, the reason why I wanted to answer this one is, first of all, don't even talk to a recruiter until you are crushing the PST. Because probably what that recruiter is going to do is have you sign all this paperwork, get you in the delayed entry program, and then say, all right, let's see how you do on the PST. Well, guess what? If you suck at the PST and you don't know how to swim yet, or you can't run a mile and a half or do a pull-up, you're never going to pass the PST in the amount of time in the delayed entry program for you to join the Navy SEALs. So, or go to BUDS. So make sure you have all your stuff squared away physically before you talk to a recruiter, because it will, you're putting yourself in a timeline that may not be perfectly fit for your ability to improve in that timeline. It may take you a year and a half to really crush the PST, depending on your current abilities. It may only take 3 months. I don't know. I've seen both. But do not even talk to a recruiter until you're crushing the PST. Then when you go in there and they say, yeah, let's see you take a PST. Okay, I'm ready. And then you go in there and crush it on day one. Are you kidding me? You know what that recruiter's going to be doing? You know, because here's what the recruiter sees all the time. He sees people come in there failing a PST, and he doesn't take them seriously. Like you're a joke. You're not going to go to BUDS. You can't even swim, right? They put no effort into you. You know what's going to happen when you show up on day one, you crush that PST, beat everybody in that group that's been failing for the last 3 months, is they're going to take you very seriously. They're going to call you back and say, hey, we got a MEPS date for you. We got this. Come on in. We'll sign some paperwork and we'll get you your ship date whenever you want to go. You know, they'll treat you with a lot more respect if you do that. Otherwise, you're just wasting time, wasting their time and yours. So before we go, let's everybody say bye to Mikkel. Danish, going to boot camp there in Denmark. You go crush it and have fun. Come join us whenever you're done. Let us know how you did. But it looks like you had a question here. Yeah, let us know how you do on that run after not running for so long. Make sure you're stretching those ankles. If you have shin splints, stretch those ankles and shins. That's going to be very helpful. Appreciate advice and knowledge I've acquired over the months from you. Well, thank you, Mikkel. You go get them. And we're glad you're on our NATO team over there. So, all right, folks. I got to run. If you would, and I know I missed like 5 or 6 questions here, just cut and paste them and email them to me, stu@stewsmith.com. I apologize. I just have to run. I got a deadline I got to get on an article, and then I got to go coach swimming. So until next time, we'll do a couple book giveaways tomorrow. I'll be back at 9 a.m. Send me a swim video. I'll critique it. And that's what tomorrow's show is going to be. So live Q&A along with a swim video. All right. We'll see you guys later. Until tomorrow.